So I'm Irv Epstein, a member of the board of the Scholars at Risk Network, and I just want to make a couple of remarks and then introduce my esteemed colleagues who will talk. I intend to make a few comments, brief comments, and then introduce my esteemed speakers who will talk for about 5 to 10 minutes each, and then we're going to open up the session for questions. It's my belief that the Venezuelan case is unique in the sense that the visibility of academic freedom attacks and the impunity with which they've been conducted by state actors is remarkable. We have a case or a situation of a judiciary which is acting as a legislative body at the behest of the president. We have the creation of subservient alternative academic institutions. We have violence towards student protesters and the jailing of academicians that are extensive and has been highlighted in 2017 through SAR publications. Human rights activists and human rights scholars talk of the boomerang effect with regard to human rights discourse. And the view is that the fight for human rights begins at the local level. It becomes national and then international in scope. And then it comes back to assist those who've started the movement at the local level. And it's our hope that this kind of situation, this kind of trend can be expedited through our discourse and conversation here today. Giving attention to the Venezuelan situation is right and appropriate for the Global SAR Congress. It's exactly what we do, what we're committed to doing, and our guests will talk about in more detail specific courses of action that are relevant to help our colleagues who are in Venezuela right now. I'm pleased then to introduce Mayda Hočevar of Universidad de Andes and Ricardo Villalobos from the NGO Aula, Abierta, and they're going to talk specifically about what the situation is in Venezuela, and then we're going to open it up to possible courses of action. So thank you very much. Mayda, why don't you start?
Thank you. Hello. Good morning. I will talk on legal policies and parallel systems that are posing serious threats to academic freedom in Venezuela. The Bolivarian dictatorial regime in Venezuela has been in power for 20 years. During this period, threats to higher education institutions have increasingly proliferated, affecting the innermost essence and values of university, affecting thus its nature and future continuity. Among the legislation changes that have affected academic freedom are the creation in 2003 of the Sucre Mission and of Bolivarian universities as means of political indoctrination. In 2008, the national university training programs are created in compliance with the Plan de la Patria, a sectarian governmental project. In 2009, a new law of education is passed incorporating articles in violation of academic freedom. In 2009, also the Alma Mater governmental program is created to promote university radical transformation according to the Bolivarian socialist dogma. In 2010, the law of science, technology, and innovation is reformed, and public and private resources are such centralized by the government. In 2013, a collective convention is imposed to rule public autonomous universities without participation of their legitimate representatives. In 2015, the creation of the permanent training system for university teachers requests that university research should be controlled by the Ministry of Higher Education. By 2017, 41 universities in Venezuela are non-autonomous and subjected to the Ministry of Education, even though academic freedom and autonomy are protected by Constitution. Since 2012, the Supreme Court of Justice prohibited universities to elect their authorities, and judges obedient to the executive power are used for criminalizing university rectors and to impose university authorities, as is the case of Simón Bolívar University, where a military man was appointed last year as academic vice-chancellor. On the other hand, a parallel system of non-autonomous universities have been created by and subordinated to the executive branch. There are 32 Bolivarian universities created in the last 15 years. These universities are used for indoctrination into the Bolivarian socialist credo and do not meet the minimal quality standards. These universities are subjected to a political governmental doctrine. In them, students and professors are discriminated either for having an opinion critical of the government or belonging to opposition groups. That is the case of Rafael Avendaño, expelled on October 2016 simply for watching a television station that was not the state-owned channel. Financial restrictions. In an hyperinflationary economy, university budget has been kept even during the last 10 years, which together with the existence of an economic exchange control has affected main universities in such issues as equipment and technological service acquisition, mobility of professors, researchers, and students in the international academic context, continuity of international alliances, and adherence to research and academic exchange webs, barriers to book acquisition and subscription to international scientific journals, difficulties for maintaining and repairing university infrastructures. University salaries are so low that a professor earns between $2 and $5 per month. As a consequence, universities are facing a severe diaspora and brain drain. In 2018, universities suffered between 50 and 80% of student desertion. According to the rector of the Metropolitan University, 50% of its best professors have renounced in the last 4 years, and the same is occurring in all universities. Efforts have been made to counter these threats. In the international field, we have presented in 2016 a report for UPR about reprisals and restrictions of academic freedom and university autonomy in Venezuela. And in 2017, we went to the Inter-American Human Rights Commissions, participating in the hearing on right to education proposed by the state. The commission issued its 2018 country report of Venezuela, expressing its concerns at the allegations of interference in university autonomy, emphasizing that the university autonomy is an essential prerequisite for academic freedom. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. As Professor Mayda has explained, in Venezuela there is a crisis where universities are one of the most attacked institutions. In this minute, I'm going to highlight 3 main points. The first is criminalization of protests against students and university professors. At least 17 professors were arbitrarily detained in 2017. The reasons for the detentions over different matters, such as the publication of critical ideas against governmental public policies or to have participated in demonstrations against Venezuelan government. Of these 17 professors, 8 were brought before military justice, violating national and international standards for human rights. Up to date, 12 professors are under precautionary measures, and one of them still physically deprived of liberty. A specific example to mention can be Santiago Guevara case, a professor who was brought before military justice and was arbitrarily detained for over 10 months for publishing critical opinions against public financial and economic policy of the government. He lost over 30 kilos due to the poor conditions of the place where he was being held. But professors weren't the only target. 339 students were arbitrarily detained during the demonstrations occurred between the month of April to July 2017. Many of them were brought before military courts too. In addition, many detained professors and students denounced to have been the victims of tortures and cruel, degrading, and inhuman treatments during the detention, being stigmatized as terrorists, conspirators, and plotters. On the other hand, 92 demonstrations convened by the academic community, or that had a wide participation of the same, were suppressed with the disproportional use of force. The main repressing organ was the Bolivarian National Guard, being responsible for the 82 of the demonstration repression. And at least 21 students were killed during these protest periods. Eruption to the campuses by the state security forces were also registered. At least 21 attacks to university campuses between April and July 2017 were registered, being the Bolivarian National Guard once again responsible for the largest numbers of break-ins, with 41%. It must be said that colectivos widely participate in these attacks, with the line of the police forces. But when we talk about Venezuelan higher education system, we have to talk about discrimination, because discriminatory practices in the higher education system has been increasing in recent years. For example, we can talk about Jesus Enrique Lozada Scholarship Program. Between June 21st and July 3rd, 2016, 896 students from the state of Zulia were temporarily disincorporated from the government-held scholarship program. The reason? The students were participating in the process of collecting signatures in favor of the activation of the recall referendum against President Nicolás Maduro. Many discrimination cases on political grounds have been documented, including a student from the National Polytechnic Experimental Armed Force University, UNEFA by its acronym in Spanish, and the Bolivarian University of Venezuela, among others. For example, we can talk about Isaac Lugo, a UNEFA student who is a member of the political party Primero Justicia, and who was suspended by university authorities for showing his support to the right wing, which is the political opposition in Venezuela, on his social media. But finally, we have to talk about the reprisals against academic freedom. Scientific research in Venezuela is under a crisis. The governmental program Estímulo a la Investigación e Innovación grants insufficient funds to researchers. In that sense, we have to say that the highest ranked researchers receive 0.40 euros. But apart from this, censorship practices have also been applied to scientific research. A professor and microbiologist denounced to have been censored by the authorities of the public health care center where she works. She tried to share her finding with the World Health Organization regarding some infections found inside the previously mentioned public health care center. However, at the moment of requesting authorization to the hospital management, it was prohibited under the penalty of being removed from her position. Those are some of the reprisals that academic freedom face in Venezuela. Thank you.
So before we open it up for questions, maybe both of you could comment upon one or two courses of action that SAR and other international organizations could take or could be taking to assist our colleagues in Venezuela.
Yes. One, I think it's very important to deliver a statement, a public statement, expressing concerns about threats to academic freedom in Venezuela. Writing an open letter to the Ministry of Higher Education requesting him to allow university elections in compliance with the autonomic principle for renovating their authorities. Writing letters to Regional Office of Education of UNESCO, asking them to deliver a statement about the situation in academic freedom and university autonomy in Venezuela. UNESCO haven't said anything about the situation of higher education in Venezuela yet, not a word. There are also some humanitarian measures, for example, to allow free access to scientific journals to Venezuelan researchers, as well as free access to publish in academic journals without requesting the usual payments, to give support at least to one professor for being able to attend an academic meeting or congress and present a paper abroad. Yeah, I don't know if there are a few.
Yes. In fact, we believe that networking is crucial in this theme. We believe that SAR, for example, can make some conference and campaigns about academic freedom in Latin America. We think that in Latin America there has to be more efforts to work around academic freedom. We also can submit reports on violations of academic freedom before international human rights bodies and get SAR supports on one initiative that it's called Virtual Encyclopedia on Academic Freedom, in order to make people aware about the existence of academic freedom and its importance. And we believe that is pretty much.
Great, good. So we have about 15 minutes or so, and I would like to open it up for questions from the audience so we can have a broad discussion about the situation in Venezuela, as well as brainstorming for possible solutions as to what we should be doing in furthering the comments that my colleagues have just made. So are there questions or comments? Yes.
So you talked about the military situation, how they are controlling the Venezuelan universities, etc. So for me, as like an observer from the outside, the only solution would be to try to help the students who are inside, to bring them outside, to Europe, to the US, etc. So what about the initiatives that are around the world to help the Venezuelan students to go out, to try to study, to try to be involved in research and science, etc.? Is there anything like that, or is actually even this forbidden in Venezuela?
No initiative at all, and this was also one of the proposals, as there are some measures on migrants already issued by the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. It will be also good to have the equivalent on academic or students migrants, so that they can, because they are leaving the country. I mean, that's such a big rate of desertion. It would be so good to have the possibility that universities, I mean, they can go to other universities abroad to continue their studies, but there is not at all any initiative at the moment. It's, inside Venezuela, it's impossible.
Yes. Yeah, so if I could just follow up on that. So last week, the government of Chile said that they were going to allow for temporary migration from Venezuelan residents to Chile. Do you think that might have any effect at all upon the academic community in Venezuela?
It's already having many of the professors and students are migrating to Chile, and as much as I know, Chile said they are recognizing, I mean, not requesting a visa for people who has PhD.
Yes, well, I believe that is important because we need to understand that Venezuelan situation, it's a really complex situation of human rights violations. For example, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights has said before the Human Rights United Nations Council that he is really worried about the human rights situations in Venezuela, but also the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights. So international community has to make some bigger efforts in order to help Venezuelan people, in concrete, students and academics in general.
And also, I mean, to realize that the problem is really, really, really serious. I mean, maybe it's all the context of academic freedom violations is inside a wider context of a terrible humanitarian crisis in Venezuela.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a very pragmatic question, which is a little bit similar to that question that has already been asked. So the students is one thing, but the others are the researchers. As I learned, many of them have dropped out. I know one researcher who did the PhD in your university and tries now to find a perspective. He's already out of academia at the moment because he cannot live. Is there a possibility for such people to get a scholar at risk support so that they can at least go on somehow and then resort themselves? Although it's bad because it's a brain drain, but I think at the moment you either have a brain drain in the country and they are lost for academia, or you rescue, and some of them may come back when Maduro is gone and try to reestablish the system.
Yes, absolutely. And you can imagine if a professor is earning only between $1 and $5 per month. I mean, they cannot live with this, absolutely. And I know professors in my university that are so good researchers, and they say, well, I cannot do the research. I have to try to do the files, the queues for finding the food for my daughter. And I mean, this could be also something very helpful from SAR.
The question for you, is there a possibility for such researchers to apply at SAR, and if so, where should they address to?
Yes, well, there is the possibility they should contact the SAR office in New York for assistance. It is very difficult, as you say, because of brain drain issues, linguistic issues, and so on and so forth. And to be quite honest, the SAR presence in South America and in Latin America generally needs to be more robust than it is. So I think the short-term solution, whenever the SAR office and officers become aware of cases, then they will examine the cases and work with people to the best of their ability. The question is making the initial contact, and that can help when there are also more institutions that are closer, both in terms of culture, language, and geography in South America that can help. But no one is turned away. The question is making those contacts.
Hi, just to follow up on that, we're the BOSE program, which is in France. It's a network of more than 60 institutions right now that hosts researchers in exile, and we just had two people from Venezuela that they are just coming right now to be host, and we're thinking about how to do better, how to spread out the news. I think they knew about us because they studied a bit in France, so they could contact their universities back. But I wanted to know if you're aware of the conference that will take place in Barcelona in June about researchers in danger. And because of what you were saying, like there is a language also parameter that you have to take into account. And maybe it would be good to raise this question at this conference. So I can give you the context.
I would like to say something regarding this situation, and is, for example, that in Venezuela, as I said, the 12 professors still under precautionary measures. So it's kind of difficult thing, no? We have to figure out a way to avoid that precautionary measures in order to get the professors out of the country. It's a really, really complex situation. So it will be good to figure out all together what we can do about that.
One comment I would also make is that in the Chilean case, part of the reason for the receptivity of opening Chilean borders even temporarily is because of the historical legacy of Venezuela helping those who were opponents of the coup and were in exile, and that legacy is remembered. So to the extent to which there are bilateral relationships and international institutional relationships with universities of long standing in Venezuela, that is capital that should really be used to help those who are in need of assistance now. Yes.
I'm assuming that your presence at this controversial conference would be putting you in some risk, by your comments here. And if you go back to Venezuela, how do you respond to some concerns like that?
Human rights defenders and in general whoever is denouncing the situation in Venezuela, abroad or inside Venezuela, is facing some risks. we have been, I mean, the government have been attacking us by the media, saying that we are for imperialism, universal imperialism, that we are the most dangerous rightist wing of the world and things like that. But we keep doing that.
Yes, we are under, I don't know, risk, but also we have to say that we achieved to put the academic freedom theme in the National Human Rights Movement agenda. So the National Movement agenda is very, very busy, but they are also like together with all the human rights defenders. So that is the support we have. I mean, we're under risk, but we are going to do it. There is no fear, I believe.
Yes.
Hello, I'm from the German Commission for UNESCO, and Ms. Hočevar has asked for the role of UNESCO, whether UNESCO is not speaking out of that. Actually, UNESCO has a body which is called the Committee on Conventions and Recommendations. Actually, it can be called upon in all cases of human rights violations of scholars and scientists. And this committee, unfortunately, is not used so much, even though it can be very easily accessed more or less by everybody in every country around the world. And because of this reason that it can be so easily accessed, exactly the countries that we are speaking about here try to abolish that committee. So it would be very interesting to make more use of that committee, even though it is not about public shaming. It is trying to negotiate concrete solutions for concrete cases with the governments concerned. It is not a public shaming institution. More the role of that is with the Human Rights Committee in Geneva. But still, this is something maybe with SAR we could discuss more how to use this committee more, because it's actually a very suitable institution.
Thank you.
For sure, in Venezuela signed this declaration, 1997 declaration, and it's building and creating universities, non-autonomous universities, and insisting and deepening the non-autonomic institutions.
That is the basis. Yes. Yes.
Yes, good morning. My name is Jeff Wilkesman. I am professor at the University of Carabobo in the field of chemistry and biochemistry. In Venezuela, I'm current village box scholar right now, working in Mannheim, Germany. And I would just like to compliment a little bit your work. I'm very proud of what you're doing right now for our country. However, I must admit that it's very unpleasant
Thank you so much for that context. I think what you say really highlights the courage of those who are in the country and are staying in the country and fighting for human rights in all of its inundations. But thank you very much for that background. Other questions? We have time for about 2 more questions or so. Yes.
Just, I want to remark, because to make a remark, I come myself from Azerbaijan, which was part of the Soviet Union,
Right.
As you know, and I lived the time period. And I lived the time period when the 1990s, when the Soviet Union collapsed, and a lot of researchers, scientists became useless. They became useless, and they started. What they did was going to trade, doing like, and a lot of, and this was also the beginning of when the scholars started to get to take the prize, because they were, the social system, social security was totally broken down. So I think the situation, the crisis, what I heard now from Venezuela is the same as it was in the period of the Soviet Union. So we have to face this situation as that, and as that as critical.
Yes.
I think it is it is very risky situation for the scholars. What should they do if they earn like $5
Yes. Yes.
per month? So, just wanted to put it in the attention of people. What does it mean when the social security system or totally collapse, and even scholars
Yes.
find a way of it.
If they get sick, I mean, it's prohibited to get sick in Venezuela, and if you're a scholar, impossible. I mean, you will die. No social security, anything.
One more question. Yes.
Not just in this session, but in other sessions, we always talk about what we come from different countries to the West, and we want solidarity within this. But as someone who was actually incarcerated, and mobilization outside of the Western countries is very important. But you didn't mention very much. But what are the other Latin American countries and universities are actually doing? So Chile was mentioned for historical reasons, but how much solidarity comes from the other countries? This naming and shaming becomes a little bit political when it only comes from the first world.
Yes.
And when you don't have other countries, in my case, when I was interested myself, actually mobilization from Asia and Africa was much more influenced. It validated what my colleagues in the West had done, but otherwise, because I was accused of being a spy. But the same thing is, I think sometimes, especially in the Venezuelan case, imperialism becomes a easy thing to justify everything with. But with Mexico, Colombia, other universities in Latin America, it's not as easy to be dismissed, at least in terms of public opinion. But it wasn't mentioned anything about what kind of solidarity comes from outside the Western world.
It's coming a lot of big solidarity from outside, maybe not precisely in the field of universities, but for example, Mexico said that they won't recognize the elections that are going to be held in May, and Brazil and Argentina and Chile, etc. There is a big solidarity. Maybe the few countries that are still with a Maduro regime are Cuba, Bolivia, and Ecuador. But within the field of universities, for example, in Ecuador, most professors from Venezuela are now, I mean, the best professors with research, et cetera, are working in Ecuador. The university, Yachay University, that was created by Correa, is only in the scientific field. All mathematicians in Yachay University are from my university, in University of Los Andes. They are all now working in Yachay University in Ecuador, and also the same in Colombia, etc. So they are receiving the professors, but there is not this solidarity of, to context everything in the field of academic freedom, and we are helping the universities, etc. No, not yet.
I think we're going to have to move on because we have another session that's going to start in a minute or two. But please give my colleagues a round of applause for their being here.